Hello everyone, thank you so much for clicking on today's video and welcome to my channel. In today's story, OP reaches out to Reddit to ask if she's the a-hole for not being okay with her husband going to his ex-wife's funeral. Now, from the title it might seem okay, but when you actually get down to the details of the story, you'll realize how resentful OP actually is. This post is really an advertisement for why you should definitely get therapy and work through some of your resentment, especially if you want a happy future. Anyways, I do hope that you enjoy this story. It's a little bit on the darker side, but it does end in a semi-happy ending, or at least an ending that I'm satisfied with. If you do enjoy the story, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a thumbs up. And before I move on to the story, I just wanted to take a second and thank all of my subscribers. Thank you so much. You guys have been so supportive, especially through all of the ups and downs of the past couple of months. For those that are new, if you do like my content and would like to support me, I would really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. Anyways, thank you so much for your time and onto the story. Am I the asshole for not wanting my husband to go to his ex's funeral? I'll admit that I have been biased from the start. I couldn't stand her. I refer to her as his ex to myself and others, while he calls her his friend. We're all in our early 40s. Unfortunately, she recently passed away due to an aneurysm. I've been with my husband for 10 years, but he had known her for over 20 years. According to him, they were friends in college, then decided to date, got married, but realized that they weren't a great couple, so they decided to just be friends. This all happened years before I met him, and he made it clear early on that she was important to him. A couple of months into our relationship, it came up that his friend was actually his ex-wife. He explained their history and that they were just friends. I expressed my discomfort with him being so close to an ex, and he told me that if it was a serious issue for me, I should let him know then, and he would choose her as she was one of the most important people in his life. I would have to be okay with that if I wanted to be with him. When we were engaged, I asked him about it again, but he looked puzzled and asked why our marriage would affect his friendships. I went along with it, but I resented every moment of knowing her, especially during social events. Her husband was also friends with my husband, so I couldn't use him as an angle. My husband would have lunch with her, go to movies with her, and more. When I brought it up a few times, he reminded me that we had this conversation before and that I had the chance to back out. She passed away after having lunch with my husband, and he spent some time crying, but honestly, I was relieved. He was working with her husband for funeral planning, and I asked him if he was going to the funeral. I argued that since she was gone, she was no longer a factor, and there was no need for him to attend the funeral. He was extremely angry with me, saying that he would be going no matter how I felt, and that he was, quote-unquote, willing to burn this to the ground, as he pointed to his wedding ring. He also said that besides me, she was the closest friend in his life. My husband, her husband, and my sister are all calling me an insensitive and heartless person. Her husband going as far as calling me a ghoul. I never felt that the relationship was appropriate, but I kept my feelings hidden for years because I wanted to be with my husband. Now that she's gone, I feel like I shouldn't have to hide my feelings anymore and can finally speak freely. Am I the a-hole for just wanting my husband to be done with her and not attend the funeral? The overwhelming verdict to that post was that OP was deemed an a-hole and was considered heartless by all. They then posted in another subreddit, 2X chromosomes, about 1.5 months later. This is what they say. We've been together for 10 years, but he's choosing to end all of that because of my reaction to his ex-wife's death. When we met, they were friends. He claimed that they dated and got married when they were young and dumb, but later realized that they worked better as friends than as a couple. He told me that if I wanted a relationship with him, I needed to accept that she would always be a part of his life. He did things like go to geek movies and do tabletop gaming with her and sometimes her husband, which I found boring. Our marriage was mostly happy, but I had to deal with her presence and pretend that she and her husband were friends. I hated her, and when she died, I was relieved. I didn't want him to go to the funeral, and I told him so. I was called cold and callous for wanting to put my foot down. He went to the funeral, which made me very uncomfortable. I asked him not to go again, but he gave me a cold, expressionless stare. She was cremated, and he was given a small urn containing her ashes. I told him that it was creepy to have them, and he flipped me the bird. The past month or so has been a nightmare for me because of her death. My husband has barely talked to me, and I've received texts from all of our family and friends calling me a monster, all because someone saw my original post on Reddit and shared it with everyone they knew, even people at my job. The replies on Reddit were nice compared to what my friends said. I was out of town on a work trip for several days. On Friday, I came home to a partially empty house, his car gone, and a petty-sounding letter saying that we would be getting a divorce, that it was going to happen and that he had already filed. He said that my post was one of the most hurtful things that he'd ever read, and that my jealousy of his friendship was insane. He wrote, "I effing watched her die. She was walking by my side when it happened. I have nightmares about it." He said that I would be keeping the house because he, quote-unquote, didn't want to spend every morning waking up to a reminder of the years of lies that was our marriage. He left a list of what he was taking and said that I could keep the rest. His last line was, "If it had been me instead of her, she would have been there for you in an instant. Remember that." I later learned that he was staying with her husband, who sent me a long text telling me to stay away from his house and that he regretted ever letting me into his life. My own sister said that if she learned I was dating someone, she would fill him in on what a black-carded C-word I am. So my husband is divorcing me because of his first wife's death. She's more important to him, and it seems to our friends, than keeping our marriage together. She's screwing up my life, even from the grave. So guys, what did you think about this? Oh boy, was OP completely, utterly delusional in this post. First of all, I feel so sorry for what OP's husband and OP's ex-wife's husband are currently going through. Like, I cannot imagine the pain of losing someone that you care so deeply about, and then finding out that someone else who you care very deeply about essentially resents that person. Oh my god, I can't imagine. Now, on to something I mentioned in the intro. If you do have feelings like that and you want to make your relationship work, one, communication is the key. But before you can effectively communicate properly, you need to be able to sort through your own feelings of resentment, at the very least, so that you can vocalize them properly. I really think OP would have benefited from going to some sort of therapy sessions just to process her feelings, and then maybe OP and her soon-to-be ex-husband would be better off going through couples therapy so that they could navigate OP's ex-husband's relationship with his ex-wife. I know it's a little complicated, but yeah, that's my feelings. Honestly, I've always been a proponent of open communication during a relationship, and I really think that was lacking here. Anyways, what did you guys think? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you did like the story, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a thumbs up. And please subscribe if you'd like to hear more stories from Reddit with updates.